Hello, my name is Lori Lorimer Lawson, and on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Skagit County, I welcome you to this candidate forum. I will serve as the moderator. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization. We do not oppose or support candidates. We encourage the informed and active participation of all citizens in government, and membership is open to women and men, and we invite you to join us. We acknowledge the candidates joining us this evening and appreciate those of you who will be viewing the forum recording. We hope that you will learn about these people who are running for this office and who wish to represent us. Each candidate will be invited to provide an opening statement of 2 minutes and a closing statement of 2 minutes. Community submitted questions have been provided to the candidates ahead of time. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to respond to each question. Time may prevent us from asking all questions. We welcome the candidates for the office of Superior Court Judge, position number 3. The Superior Court handles cases regarding felony, criminal, civil, dissolution and custody, juvenile, paternity and adoption, probate, mental commitments proceedings. I'd like to introduce the candidates who will appear on your ballot this year in alphabetical order. They are Elizabeth Yost Nedzweski and Tom Seguin.
Hello.
Our timer will keep track of the time passing. You'll see it in the left-hand corner here. As the speakers are speaking, it will start out green. And then as you move along and have 15 seconds left, it will turn to yellow. If it turns red, that means the time is up, and we ask that you stop talking. We ask that candidates be respectful of the others' time allowed, and if you speak beyond the limit, you may be muted. We will begin with the 2-minute introductory statements from each candidate. Let's begin with candidate Seguin. Would you please unmute your microphone and begin with your opening statement?
Superior Court experience matters for a Superior Court judge. Think about it. It's not just something to say, it's not academic. Legal matters and cases are difficult and complicated. They require deep thought, deep consideration of many things, including how the law applies in certain settings, how much things cost, how cases are processed, and most importantly, what happens to the people involved in the cases, what happens in their lives. This year, I helped to resolve a situation in a criminal case where an indigent man was illegally and improperly sentenced to prison for 5 years when the most he should have been sentenced to was 1. The problem I discovered was that he had already been in prison for 2 years. I notified the attorneys involved who had less experience than me, and they took steps to fix the honest mistake that they had made. This was because of my experience. Superior Court experience matters for a Superior Court judge. It matters when you choose a doctor, a pilot, a plumber, or a mechanic, or even a babysitter. Shouldn't experience matter when you select a judge? For over 30 years, I have prosecuted, defended, litigated, and resolved tens of thousands of cases in criminal and civil court. I have more than 3 times the legal experience of my opponent from every perspective, including quantity at 30 years, and in quality as prosecuting attorney, as defense attorney, as public defender in private civil disputes in all the courts of Skagit County and all the different types of cases. I have a small business that I've run successfully. These experiences and these perspectives have fully prepared me to be your next Superior Court judge.
Thank you. And now candidate Nedzweski. Please unmute your mic and do your opening statement. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. And thank you to you, everyone who's watching and taking the time to make an informed decision about who should be our next Superior Court judge. I'm a graduate of Anacortes High School, Western Washington University, and Washington and Lee Law School. I'm an experienced trial attorney with a background in both civil and criminal law. I'm currently a senior deputy defender with the Skagit County Public Defender's Office. I supervise our office's juvenile, mental health, and parents' representation units. I work closely with people from all backgrounds, many of whom struggle with mental health issues, have been victims of crime, and are unable to afford housing. I've seen the devastation of chemical dependency and celebrated sobriety and stability with clients and their families. I also serve as vice president of the Northwest Justice Project Board, which provides civil legal assistance to low-income people. I'm running for judge because it's important our judges understand and care about the struggles our community members face every day. I have seen those struggles, worked closely with the people facing them and community partners to find solutions, and I've advocated for equitable justice for all throughout my career. In a county as tightly connected as Skagit, the struggles of one truly do have an impact on all of us. Our judges have an impact on many aspects of our lives as a community, whether that be from deciding child custody disputes to sentencing those convicted of crimes, to deciding complicated business or contract disputes. If elected, I will always uphold the law. I will work to ensure public safety and eliminate the many barriers to access justice that so many of our neighbors face. Thank you very much for tuning in tonight.
Thank you very much. In this next section of the forum, we will move to questions which have been prepared by League members and provided to the candidates in advance. Each candidate will be asked to respond to the same question as they are called upon. Now, for the first question, as a reminder, you'll have 1.5 minutes for each question, or for each answer, actually. So, would candidate Nedzweski unmute your microphone and answer this first question? Here we go. Here's our question. What are the top priorities in maintaining an efficient, effective, and responsive Superior Court system?
Thank you. The top priority to maintain an efficient, effective, and responsive Superior Court system is making sure that it is accessible for our entire community. Superior Court serves all of Skagit County, and it needs to be responsive and accessible for our entire community. And right now, like so many other questions in life, this all comes back to COVID. In a time of COVID, we've converted many hearings to telephonic or Zoom access, and our Superior Court has been working extremely hard to make this big transition. It's resulted in some changes for our court, which have allowed it to keep functioning even during a global pandemic. We're now having many virtual hearings. We have a large socially distanced courtroom for jury trials, and the clerk's office is accepting electronic filing. And this is wonderful for keeping people safe and separate, but it creates new challenges for those without ready and efficient cellular and internet access. There's a technology gap between those with ready access to technology and those without. Imagine having to call in for a court hearing and having to borrow a cell phone or go to a friend's house to use their internet. Now imagine that this court hearing is really important, as most are in Superior Court. Maybe the custody of your children is going to be decided. Maybe if you don't show up, you'll get a warrant and be arrested. Now imagine not having enough minutes on your phone to stay on the hearing for the entire time. Our judges need to be nimble, ready, and willing to adapt to changing technology demands as time goes by. We need to be creative and responsive to the specific needs of our community so that we can serve it.
Thank you. The same question, may I repeat for candidate Seguin? What are the top priorities in maintaining an efficient, effective, and responsive Superior Court system?
I have 2 or 3 things I want to talk about here. One of them being community outreach. I've worked in the court system for a very long period of time, and I know that people who go in and out of the court system often comment on how difficult it is to understand what is going on in a courtroom when a case is heard. I think that the judges in particular, and particularly as elected officials, have a duty to go out into the public in some form and try to have some form of dialogue with the public to explain to them in general, not about specific cases, about how the court reaches or how the court works. Secondly, as far as what my opponent has said, I agree with the comments about COVID. That's something that needs to be addressed on a regular basis because we are in what some people are calling the new normal. And though we think of it as being just for the pandemic, the changes that are being made here are probably going to be permanent in many ways. I think we need more accessibility for the court in general through electronic media. And finally, there are concerns in our county about the court facilities. My opponent actually works on the third floor of the courthouse, which has cracks running through it. And there's a need to address the facilities on a long-term basis.
Thank you. The first question will be for you, candidate Seguin. Are there specific changes you see needed? And if so, how would you implement them?
Okay, I'll go backwards here for a second. Starting with the facilities that I talked about the last time, I was the prosecuting attorney in Skagit County in 2000, 2001. And I was the chair of the Law and Justice Council, which conducted many of the preliminary meetings which were necessary to get a new jail. The jail had become obsolete. There was a long planning process involved in that, and I spearheaded some of that. Those types of steps need to be taken with respect to the facilities that we have. As far as the COVID stuff, I think we have to keep looking at different ways of doing things, conducting jury trials, bringing jurors in, just conducting trials in general. I have specifically proposed to the Superior Court that it adopt new rules in the local rules, which would allow for electronic service on attorneys in private practice, because that's not a standing rule. So we're still doing the paper chase in Superior Court in a way which is unnecessary. The other thing that goes on the civil side is it's very difficult to get a case on the calendar. The rules are very regimented in terms of time and in terms of having to get on the docket. I think that we need to streamline that process so it's easier for all parties, including particularly people who don't have the money to hire attorneys, to get into court and have their cases heard.
Thank you. Candidate Nedwedski, the second question, are there specific changes you see needed? And if so, how would you implement them?
One specific change that we need in Skagit County is bringing back our mental health court. We used to have a mental health court, and it allowed people with serious mental illness to get treatment and support in the community instead of going to prison. It offered medication management, counseling, support finding a job and accessing benefits, and help getting back into school or vocational training. I saw how successful it was in its operation and how it had the ability to change lives and families, create stability, and increase public safety. We don't have a mental health court anymore, and that's a tragedy. Now, unfortunately, this is not something that any one judge or even all of our judges can create in a vacuum. It's a challenge that our entire community must come together to build. Our service providers, our voters, our prosecutors, our defense attorneys, law enforcement, and our judges. If elected, I'll serve as a voice and support and an advocate for returning our mental health court, because we can do better than what we're currently doing for our most vulnerable community members.
Thank you. Candidate Nedwedski, please delineate for us specifically how you would respect diversity as a Superior Court judge.
Thank you. I value the diversity in our community, and if elected, I promise to continue to treat everyone with respect. I will listen to each person who comes before me and make sure that people are given the chance to be heard. But there's more to respecting diversity than just allowing people the chance to be heard and treating them with respect and nicely. Valuing diversity requires educating yourself. Our statewide judicial system is doing tremendous work right now to study the history of how our legal system has been used to marginalize humans and communities. There are commissions within the judiciary spending time looking at this issue thoughtfully and working towards how we can be better as a court system. One specific example is language access. I've worked closely with clients that speak other languages. I recognize and understand that everyone has the right to an interpreter in criminal court. Access to interpreters has a direct impact on this community, particularly during the pandemic when many hearings are conducted virtually. I've seen private attorneys speak with clients who I know are not familiar with the English language or have only a passing familiarity and aren't able to conduct a hearing without the assistance of an interpreter, go forward without actually having an interpreter present. And these things aren't just a matter of respect, they're a matter of the law. If someone's not able to understand the case if it's proceeding before them, that case can come back on appeal and it will end up being something that the county has to deal with again a second time. If you don't do it properly, thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Seguin, please delineate specifically how you would respect diversity as a Superior Court judge.
I have to take a little bit of an issue with the question because I don't think there's any trick or special mechanism that would allow someone to, quote, respect diversity, unquote. I think that at the end of the day, what it boils down to, as my opponent has talked about a little bit, it's the idea that you try as best you can to appreciate people for their differences and try to treat them equally in whatever setting that happens to be. And certainly in our lives, we do that all the time when we run into people in the supermarket and that sort of thing, but particularly in the courtroom. As a Superior Court judge, I would always try to be aware of that notwithstanding whatever characteristic you want to talk about, which might seem sometimes unusual or different from myself, I would make sure that that person is in fact treated equally by whatever is going on in the courtroom, whether they're representing themselves in a trial and they're giving an opening statement to a jury and they don't know how to do it, whether they're a witness, whether they're a defendant, all of those things. I have been in private practice now for 15 years, and over that period of time, I have represented countless diverse people throughout our community. And I think I have a very deep appreciation for that, the need to appreciate diversity and the need to be fair to people. I would also add here that I'm the only candidate in Skagit County that apparently has put out campaign signs that are in Spanish.
Thank you. Candidate Seguin, you'll have the first question. What techniques do you use to limit your personal biases and maintain transparency?
Thank you very much. I think I made a list of about 3 or 4 things here, maybe 5 even. First of all, I try to educate myself and I read. And when I say I read, I don't read just about the things that primarily interest me, like mountaineering and hiking and all that sort of thing. I try to read the news and I try to read books and articles that talk about different perspectives. And I think that that's a genuine way for anybody to do that. So I do that. Secondly, I listen when people talk. And I listen to people who have come to my office, who I've represented in various capacities, women, people of color, all sorts of folks, handicapped people. So I listen. Third, I try to identify my own biases and I think about who I am and where I have come from and how I might be prejudiced or biased in one way or another and not really understand that. Fourth, the fourth thing that I do is I try to talk to other people in my professional community about whether I am perceived in one particular way or another. And I think that's more of what needs to do. Fifth, I study the law related to discrimination. I am probably one of the few attorneys in Skagit County who has actually represented people in employment disputes related to discrimination based upon race, and I've become familiar with the law in that area. And last, I think what needs to happen here is we have to have a feedback system for Superior Court and for me as a judge on a routine basis from users of the system on that issue.
Thank you. Candidate Nedweski, what techniques do you use to limit your personal biases and maintain transparency?
I think Mr. Seguin hit it on the head when he said that you need to work to identify your own biases and you need to work to actively eliminate them. I have completed extensive training and work in identifying and reducing my own personal biases. I completed a year-long fellowship aimed at identifying your own biases and working towards reducing the impact of prejudice and discrimination within the legal community. That was sponsored by the Bar Association. And I brought that training back to my colleagues at the Public Defender's Office. And it's something that we have conducted trainings on. It's something that we talk about regularly as a community. We share resources together. It's also something I brought back to my family, and it's something that I am keeping in mind when I'm raising my children. It's an issue that I have raised with opposing counsel at the prosecutor's office. And if elected, I'm going to continue this work, speaking about it with my colleagues and reading and going out of my way and really focusing on educating myself in this important work. The Superior Court Judges Association, a statewide organization of all the judges in our state, recently voted their number one priority is addressing racial bias within the justice system. They voted that in June, and that's something that the court is going to be focusing on going forward. And it's not just our court that's focusing on it, it's also the access to justice community. It's something that the Board of Northwest Justice Project has been focusing on. Part of something that I've been focusing on as the Vice President of the Board of Northwest Justice Project. I'm excited about opportunities to participate more in this going forward.
Thank you. Candidate Nedwiski, the court system deals directly with the inequities of our community, often with people in poverty, addiction, and families in crisis. What do you see as the immediate strategies on the part of the courts to address this?
Thank you. These inequities in our community are something that need to be addressed at a court level, but also at an individual level, at a community level, and also on a statewide level. And one of the biggest things is increasing access to support when it's needed. And that may be in the form of mental health services or chemical dependency treatment. I spoke earlier about a mental health court that we used to have that we no longer have. Along those lines, the Mount Vernon Police Department has an embedded social worker, and Skagit County Sheriff's Office has recently brought in 2 mental health clinicians. And these steps show that there is a recognition of some of the very real problems facing our community. Another issue is telephonic and internet access for people living in poverty. That's something that the court can directly deal with because it is so difficult to call in for a court hearing when you're worried about running out of cell phone minutes. But the important thing to remember is that as judges, we aren't working in a vacuum. Judges can't wave their magic wand and make everything become better. But what they can do is they can apply the law fairly, and they can apply the law to the facts in the cases that come before them with that background information about the inequities that people in our community are facing. And that's what I promise to do if elected.
Thank you. Candidate Seguin, the court system deals directly with the inequities in our community, often with people in poverty, addiction, and families in crisis. What do you see as immediate strategies on the part of the courts to address this?
Thank you. We have to be sensitive to these types of forces that are built into our system, into our economy, into our society. There are situations that I have witnessed over the years with people. I used to say, same faces, different cases. And I think that's a warning sign for everybody because there are people who get caught into this revolving door, particularly of the criminal justice system. So over the years, I have supported all sorts of alternative programs that we already have. Drug court, Ms. Yost mentioned the mental health court. I was in support of that when I was a prosecutor. I was one of the people who actually got that up and running or participated in that process. I support deferred sentences, diversions, deferred prosecutions. We have a lot of things systemically that already exist. And so in terms of the question, I think we need to continue doing those things. But it's not just about the criminal side of things. It's also about the civil side, because as counsel said, she's vice president of the Northwest Justice Project, which is supposed to provide legal services to people who can't afford them. The person that I mentioned in my opening statement might have some sort of a legal claim based upon the fact that that person was in prison unlawfully. Whether that person knows his or her rights, I don't know, but that's something that we need to continue to look at. We have to keep talking about remote access for people. We need to think about having court, maybe not in Mount Vernon. I think we should have a social worker in the court in the courthouse.
Thank you. Candidate Seguin, What are your ideas about helping our young people who end up in the juvenile justice system?
Well, I thank you. I handled my first juvenile court case in 1991, which is almost 30 years ago, I hate to say. And I have continued to prosecute juveniles here and there until I stopped prosecution in 2007. And since 2007, I have defended juveniles in Skagit County Superior Court as part of my private caseload. I think, as with the prior question, there are many things in place in our system already, in the juvenile system, that help young juveniles. It's sort of a carrot and stick approach that juveniles need to understand that there has to be a consequence to what they do. And oftentimes, in many of the cases, that turns into a community service thing, which is good. But also, they need to know that the community in general wants to support them and get them to a better place, whatever that happens to be in their case. And so what that means is that there need to be services provided not just to the juvenile, but to the juvenile's entire family. That's already built into the system. We need to have compassionate, realistic probation officers. We have that. So I guess I don't see special things that need to go on. I think we maybe need special people that are dedicated to juvenile court and to helping juveniles so that they understand that they don't have to be stuck in a rut and they can actually go on and do better things with their lives.
Thank you. Candidate Niedzweski, what are your ideas about helping our young people who end up in juvenile justice system?
Thank you. I currently supervise my office's juvenile justice unit, where we represent juveniles who are accused of crimes within our court system. And one of the things that I have seen is the way that oftentimes a young person will start out with a relatively minor offense. Maybe it's a possession of marijuana charge, maybe it's a graffiti charge. And I've seen how things can escalate very quickly in their young life. And I've seen that how their self-esteem and the way they view themselves changes with every time that they're locked up in juvenile detention, and when they are brought into court, and when they are handcuffed walking over to court. And I've seen the way that they see themselves, and I've also seen the way that they respond with mentorship and the way that they respond with support from the community. And that's where the value of diversion is. It's an ability to reach out to kids, provide that support and services before they become criminally justice involved. And for most of the kids, we're never going to see them again once they go through that diversion process. I think that our court system needs to continue to support diversion and continue to support mentorship for young people, as Mr. Seguin said, special people who are working with our youth. This is rooted not just in what's the right thing to do, but the Supreme Court in Washington has actually recognized this as an issue recently by recognizing the evolving brain science in youth and recognizing that youth are different and they need to be treated differently. So there's been a lot of case law on that issue recently.
Thank you. Candidate Niedzweski, what experience or training have you had in conflict resolution?
Thank you. In some ways, my career has been a training and experience in conflict resolution. As an attorney, I deal with people in some of the most stressful experiences of their lives. And that's true in Superior Court, where we are looking at some of the most stressful times that people come to in their lives. There may be a divorce that's going on. There may be a big contract dispute involving their family business that they've built for years. They may be facing criminal charges, or they may have a mental health issue where they're looking at being involuntarily committed due to their mental health situation. So as an attorney, that's something that we deal with almost every single day. We often don't have good news to tell our clients, and our legal system is by its very nature adversarial and conflict driven. But to work through that conflict and trying to avoid it when possible, I try to have good working relationships with everyone connected to the court system. I also try to build solid relationships based on trust with each of my clients. De-escalation and listening and being respectful is another thing that goes a long way. And there are actually opportunities for healing in the courtroom. I've seen families be reunited. I've seen people gain stability as we're working. And so it's not all conflict. There is an opportunity for healing and hope. And that is one of the really wonderful things about working in the court system.
Thank you. Candidate Sigwine, what experience or training have you had in conflict resolution?
Thank you. I agree with Ms. Yost that the occupation lends itself to having to be involved in mediation. On one end of the spectrum, there are cases you resolve just by talking, and on the other end of the spectrum, there are cases that go to trial. I've been involved in tens of thousands of cases over time, and I don't use that number lightly. Tens of thousands of cases where we had to, one way or another, reach a resolution. I estimate over 100 jury trials, including the easiest to the most serious. And so that training in and of itself, I think, is that experience lends one to have to be in a training experience in conflict resolution. But beyond that, I have been involved in the only mediation that ever occurred in a criminal case in Skagit County, the Frontier Ford case from some years ago. I have been involved in countless private mediations in my civil practice for all sorts of civil disputes. I have been an arbitrator for the Skagit County in civil cases, and I have had specific continuing legal education training in arbitration and mediation countless times over the many years I've been in practice. So hopefully that covers it.
Thank you. Candidate Sigwine, question number 8 is, what are the most important characteristics a judge can have and why?
Okay, well, I'm just going to focus on 2 words, experience and fairness. I alluded to this a little bit in the opening statement that I made, that it's a general rule in life that when you're going to have somebody else do something for you or perform a task, that you like them to have some form of experience. And so in the legal world, as in all other worlds, the more experience someone has, the better they are qualified to do a particular task. And in this case, the Superior Court deals with all kinds of cases, as you mentioned in your introduction, and I've had extensive experience with all of those over the course of my 30 years. Criminal, civil, plaintiff, defendant, family law, juvenile law, again, you name it, I've been there and I've worked on those cases. So experience is an incredibly important thing to have. The second thing, of course, is fairness. You could have all the experience in the world, but if you don't have the ability to look at things in a neutral and detached way, you probably don't have a very good chance of being fair and impartial. And because I have that background, which is multidimensional from both sides, I have the ability to be fair and be neutral, unlike other people who have not had those experiences.
Thank you. Candidate Nedwetsky. Let me just repeat the question, I'm sorry. What are the most important characteristics a judge can have and why?
Thank you. Last time I was asked this question, I said courage. And I still believe that having the courage to make the right decision, even when it's not easy, even when it's not politically popular, is one of the most important characteristics for a judge. But there's so much more. There are so many things that are important for judges: integrity, work ethic, and humility. The law changes constantly. There are new cases coming out from the Court of Appeals and from the Supreme Court, and almost daily, usually more than one case. And the legislature is also constantly busy enacting new laws. It is impossible for any one person, no matter how many years of experience they have, to keep up or to know every aspect of the law. And that's where humility comes in. The humility to know what you don't know and to work hard and do the work when you don't know something, and to be able to evolve with the state of the law. We also need judges who are willing to collaborate. Our judges don't act in a vacuum. We need to work with the other judges in one of the most challenging times in the history of the court. I talked about some really big changes earlier that our Superior Court judges have made over the past few months due to the global pandemic. I've been working in offices for most of my career. I've had to collaborate with others. I've had to work with others and focus on that cooperation and collaboration to get the job done, because there's more to being a judge than just deciding cases. As a judge running the Superior Court, you are providing an essential service for our community.
Thank you. At this point, we've completed the prepared questions portion of the forum. Now, each of you will have 2 minutes for concluding statements to wrap up the statements. We're going to be starting with Superior Court Judge candidate Elizabeth Yost Nedzweski.
If you've made it this far into the program, thank you for listening. I hope you also take the time to vote all the way down your ballot because judicial elections matter. But voting for judges can be difficult. Under the rules of judicial conduct, we're not allowed to take positions on any issues that may come in front of us if we're elected. Judges are nonpartisan, so there aren't the typical party cues that we have for so many other elected positions. And those are really important distinctions. We need our judges to be fair and impartial. We need to know that our judges will decide each case on the facts and on the law as it comes before them in court. One thing you can look at in making your decision, though, is who supports the candidates. I'm honored to have been supported by many of the current and recently retired Skagit County Superior Court judges and commissioners. These judges know what it takes to be a good judge. They, more than anyone, know the responsibility and the demands of this important job. These are judges that I served as a law clerk, judges that I practiced in front of, including arguing motions and trying trials. These judges know me, they know my integrity, they know my work ethic. They know how I treat people. Knowing all that, they believe that I have what it takes to be your next Skagit County Superior Court judge. This campaign has been humbling, it's been hard work, and it's been exciting to meet so many people in this wonderful place that we call home. I love this community. My husband and I chose to move back here where I grew up, where my family lives, to raise our children for a reason. If elected, I will work hard for you. I will serve with integrity, I will be fair and impartial, and I will treat every litigant that comes before me with dignity and respect. I will uphold the Constitution and the law faithfully. And most of all, every day I will try my hardest to be courageous and do what is just. If you have any questions or if you would like to connect, please don't hesitate to reach out. My website is www.elizabethforjudge.com. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have Skagit Superior Court Judge candidate Sigoin.
Thank you. Experience is extremely important in any occupation. It's no less important in the selection of a judge or reviewing the credentials for someone who wants to be a judge. In this case, I'm presenting myself as a candidate for judge who is the real deal, a lawyer who has practiced in Skagit County for over 30 years, a lawyer who is multidimensional because of that. I am a lawyer who is intimately familiar with Skagit County, with our legal community, and with our legal and court system. I'm a lawyer who has taken the time to serve the people of this county as its elected prosecutor from 2002 to 2006. I'm a lawyer who has taken the time to practice in all areas of the law on both sides in criminal and civil cases for extensive time periods. I am not missing legal experience in any area. This experience clearly distinguishes me in this race. Through all of that, through all of those experiences, I have a full and profound appreciation for what is fair. I'm fully prepared to take on this extremely important role in this county where I have lived and worked for the last 30 years. I am very excited about the prospect of serving you all as your next Superior Court judge. Please do your homework and compare the candidates. I really want you to do that. If you do so objectively and think about what it is that a Superior Court judge does, I believe you will come to believe that I am the person most qualified to take on this job. If you have questions, please call me. 360-755-1000 is my phone number, or go to our website and you will see testimonials from many people who I've helped over the years who attest to my dedication to hard work, to my commitment to justice and fairness across the board. Thank you for your time. Please remember to vote by or on November 3rd.
Thank you very much. This concludes our forum with the Skagit Superior Court Judge Position 3 candidates. We want to acknowledge the City of Mount Vernon, Mayor Jill Boudreau, TV 10 and TV 26, and especially Candy Galindo with her team for their recording and technical assistance. Many thanks also to Ed West, our Vice President of the League of Women Voters of Skagit County, for his services as timer during this event, and to Kathy Ream, our Voter Services Chair with our local league, for organizing and planning. We invite you to learn more about these candidates by visiting their websites and social media pages. Look at vote411.org website, where participating candidates place information for your convenience. You can, of course, visit our website at www.skagitlwv.org, or you can visit us on Facebook at the League of Women Voters, Skagit County. We will repost the links for this forum on our league website, municipal and community pages. Feel free to share them with others. Let me repeat that. Ballots will be mailed in Skagit County on October 16th, 2020. Please remember to sign the envelope, the return envelope that your ballot will go in to the election department. Sign it before you put it in the ballot drop box before 8 o'clock on November 3rd. Let me say again, remember to sign those envelopes. If you are using the US mail, remember the postmark is critical. The US Post Office now recommends mailing your ballot a week before the election day, which would make that October 27th. So if you are filling out your ballot after that time, then use a handy election department ballot drop box that are located throughout the county. You can put your ballot in the drop box up until 8 p.m. on November 3rd. We want to thank our candidates for joining us. Thank you very much. And thank you to our audience for making the time to view this broadcast. Please vote and encourage others to do so as well. Thank you.